Hello everyone, my name is Catherine Houtman and I am here to invite you to the CHXD webinar from Ideation to Implementation, Developing Your Own Design Methodology. As I said, my name is Catherine Houtman and I'm the Director of the Center for Health Experience Design, and I'm glad you were able to come here and learn about what Priyama and Dana are here to share. Now I just have a couple of slides before we get started into the content. First, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Center for Health Experience Design. Our organization was founded by MadPow, and it's a community of almost 800 professionals and a range of organizations in the health space. Our partners include fledgling startups and global corporations. To learn more, you can visit our website at centerhxd.com. This is also sponsored by MadPow. So MadPow is a design agency that leverages strategic design and the psychology of motivation to create innovative experiences and compelling digital solutions that are good for people and good for business. So for this webinar, we are using GoToWebinar, and we're going to be presenting for about 25 minutes, and we'll spend about 5 minutes answering your questions. So if you have anything that arises during the webinar, please enter them into the question box over on the right-hand side, as you can see here in the red. And then if we are out of time, you can email us directly, but hopefully we'll get to all your questions at the end. And so now I want to pass it over to our speakers, Priyama and Dana.
Hi, I'm Priyama Barua. I'm an Experience Strategy Director at MadPow.
I'm Dana Ortegon, and I am a content strategist at MadPow. And today we're going to be talking about moving from ideation to implementation, developing your own design methodology. So about 2 years ago, we realized we had the opportunity to improve our persona building process, to do it faster, to be more inclusive of client teams, and also more focused on outcomes. We were seeing the same research insights over and over on our personal finance projects, and we wondered, were there patterns we could formalize into a tool? Could we offer our healthcare and finance clients a shortcut to help them zero in on the behaviors or personality traits of their audiences? With that goal in mind, we created Impact, a framework for building behavior-based personas. There are currently 3 versions, one for health, one for finance, and an industry-agnostic one. Over the past 2 years, we've continued to test and refine this framework, using it internally and during workshops and client trainings. So today, we're going to share the lessons we learned while creating Impact and hopefully inspire any of you who've ever thought, there's a better way to do this. If you want to find out more about Impact, here's a link for the MadPow site, and we also have a webinar that you can watch if you want to get more detail about the methodology.
Right, so when we talk about developing your own design methodology, we mean 2 things. You can either adapt a method to your particular need or create something that others can use. So let's first talk about adapting. As designers, we have access to lots of tools, from journey maps and ecosystem maps, body storming, magic button activities, etc. But the tools we have aren't always right for the job we need to do, and that's when we need to adapt them. Sometimes we just have to build a better hammer. So today we've put together a few examples of what it means to adapt existing tools and methodologies and how we've done it in the past.
So here on the screen, you can see over to the left is a content prioritization sheet that we use internally here at MadPow. I use them to figure out how to organize content on a page or screen or within a user flow. I recently adapted this tool when my team was having trouble getting stakeholders to sign off on wireframe concepts. Before we could think about detailed content, I had to get our stakeholders to agree on the basics, like page objectives and key messages. So, with a few edits, you can see over on the right, this internal tool became a client-facing one. Having our stakeholders review and approve the new prioritization sheets allowed us to gain alignment in just one work session, and we could then move forward with the wireframes.
Relationship mapping is often used as a workshop activity or as a tool to analyze interview findings. But while working with a hospital in Boston to help them understand staff dynamics, we used this well-known tool a little differently. We did a little brainstorming and testing and created these visual tools you see to help staff express themselves better during the short interview. So we added on layers of detail like arrows and faces of emotions and names of people in the ecosystem. That was all pertinent to the project at hand. And by doing this, we were able to get to the research output much faster and in a visual way that was easy for stakeholders to grasp after the research. And often we design workshops, customizing them to client needs. In this example, we used participatory design methods, but in space design, where we asked staff at a cancer hospital to describe their needs from an ideal space. But we couldn't make them start from scratch because this audience was likely to not be creatively confident. So we developed visual cutouts of elements derived from stakeholder interviews. So that's what you see on this image here, things like couches and windows and exam tables. And we gave these to participants to have them piece together their thoughts and describe their needs from the space.
So whether you're a researcher, a designer, a content strategist, or someone who works with those people, at some point in your work life, you've probably wished for tools that didn't exist. Sometimes you're lucky enough to have the time, energy, knowledge, expertise, and people power to create these tools for yourself. We're going to now go over 3 examples of organizations that have done that. So first, there's IDEO. IDEO wanted to help people and organizations incorporate human-centered design principles in their work. So they wrote a step-by-step guide to 57 design methods. You can download this guide for free online. It was so popular, IDEO raised over $85,000 on Kickstarter to produce the first print version, which you can now buy on Amazon for $29. IDEO recognized the need and created a solution.
The innovation engine is focused on healthcare innovation and accelerating the transformation for Atrium Health, with the goal of improving care for all. It utilizes human-centered design methods to inform strategy, among other things. The team at Innovation Engine utilized their experience in running human-centered design projects at Carolinas Healthcare, now Atrium Health, to create an innovation guide for anyone to use. Though the primary user of this is people at Atrium looking to run human-centered innovation projects internally, it can really be used by anyone. The guide is very comprehensive and leverages a deep expertise in running human-centered design workshops in a healthcare setting.
So for our final example, Margot Bloomstein is a content strategist who helps clients create brand messaging platforms by doing a card sort exercise. And she found that very different clients, like a pet store or a bank, could use the same set of adjectives and get positive results. Rather than keep writing these adjectives out on index cards for every workshop, she created BrandSort cards. They're glossy, fun to use, and for sale at appropriate ink. When you create a tool or methodology, you'll have to decide whether you just want to use it on internal projects or whether you want to sell it or give it away. Or you can do all 3, like we did, to get as many people as possible using your creation.
So now that you've seen some examples, I know we only touched upon them, but towards the end of these, the slide deck, you'll see some links that gives you more information about all of these examples. But we have today put together some information that to get you started if you want to adapt or create your own design methodology, and we'll tell you a little bit about how we did it when creating Impact. So when should you do this? You could do this when none of the standard tools meet the needs that you have at your project at that time. You could do this when your team or others you find are repeating tasks frequently and you find that there's inefficiencies that you can you can address by creating or adapting a method. You could have noticed recurring patterns in both your research and designs that you might want to formalize so that others can use it. Or you could be in a unique position of knowledge or experience to create or adapt something. Could be that you don't want your insights to be lost forever in a traditional report, but converted instead into a format that is more usable and fun to use. And you can have an opportunity to promote collaboration between different people and gamefulness in different processes. And why should you do this? You could do this to deepen your own understanding of design tools. When Dana and I started on this journey to create Impact, we discovered different design tools and ways to adapt them. And in the process of doing that, we learned so much more about them, and we were able to talk about them much more confidently than before. You could become more open and flexible as a designer. And with this flexibility, you will find that you will meet your stakeholder or business needs much better because you're not using something that is cookie cutter, but adapting it to that need. And you would start your journey to thought leadership by creating something new and sharing it out in the world would establish you as someone who has creative ideas and shares it. And this could set you up for the next jump in your career by showing that you have the ability to be flexible and to meet needs much better than everyone else. Doing this is as similar to the design thinking process that you know and love. I know that the design thinking process is definitely not linear, but today we've put together the flow of how we created Impact, but using these different steps of empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. But the different arrows you see there are how we moved around over and over again, iterating, going back, testing, prototyping, and we'll talk a little bit about how we did that.
So as human-centered designers, we lead with empathy. And empathy is really just a type of understanding, one that requires you to put yourself in your audience's shoes. In this case, empathy came pretty easily to us because we'd been immersed in personas and persona building for years. We'd experienced the challenges of personas for ourselves in general and specifically within the realm of personal finance projects. So when we started, we reflected on the challenges we'd faced in the actual design process and with helping our client teams to empathize with and design for their customers. We started compiling a list of pain points, including those expressed by our peers and others in the design world. One of the biggest was the belief that personas were a huge drain on resources, time, energy, and money. And some of that negativity was based in reality. At MadPow, the typical time taken to synthesize research and develop personas for a particular user group takes about 40 to 50 staff hours. The second is that personas are often based on demographics, things like age, income, education level, geographic location. At best, that can lead designers to design for themselves and not for their actual audience. But at worst, it can lead to stereotyping. Personas are often created by marketing or design teams and handed down to designers who don't know how to use them. And they're often seen as an obligatory to-do item, something that they're told to create, they're told to make, and for that reason, they may finish the project and then never actually use the tool. Identifying this set of problems helped us empathize with the stakeholders and designers who struggle to create useful personas and then socialize them effectively. So our next step was to get specific about what we wanted to build. How could we solve for all of those problems we'd identified? What did we want our solution to accomplish? So we wanted to create something to help teams gain research insights more efficiently. We can't skip research, but how could we help teams focus their efforts so they could get more behavioral insights? How could we give a variety of people throughout an organization a sense of ownership? Because by doing so, we could increase usage. How could we help designers focus on the behavior traits that were most relevant to their current project? And how could we provide concise, concrete tips to drive more effective designs? And finally, could our tool build deep empathy and understanding so teams feel like they really know their personas and could advocate for them throughout the organization? We spent a lot of hours in front of whiteboards trying to define a solution to meet all of our objectives. We thought about what form it would take. Was it a training, an awareness campaign, a white paper? Is it something that would be internal or external, digital or face-to-face? Ultimately, the idea that got us most excited was a toolkit for designers and non-designers to use in a collaborative setting. A defined framework that would give structure to what can be an otherwise unstructured, almost nebulous process. And for sure, we wanted this not to be boring. We wanted something that felt like teams were playing a game. Then we had to figure out, how is this gameful toolkit going to work? We started by brainstorming all the design methods and processes we were familiar with and pulling out the pieces that we thought would be most relevant and helpful, and identifying the elements that were key to a useful, actionable persona. These elements included business and user objectives, life events, and behavior attributes or personality traits. We decided that each of these elements would have its own set of cards. Users would pull cards from each set as they built their persona. But what order made the most sense? To figure out this sequencing, we mapped our options. You can see two of those possible options up on the screen. Once we chose a flow to move forward with, we worked the steps using a multitude of scenarios, making sure that nothing broke this framework. And we ended up with a flow that led players seamlessly from the first step, setting their business objective, to the last, creating a permanent artifact. When the timing and sequencing felt right, we were ready to build the first prototype.
The first set of impact cards helped us test the number and sequence of steps in the persona building process. It was also where we began to outline the type of content we wanted to include on each card, both instructional and informational. Once we felt we'd nailed down the steps in the flow, we wrote the facilitator's guide, complete with prompts, tips, and other information to help teams work their way through the process. Writing the facilitator's guide and all of the cards took months of collaboration. But this step is a shining example of cross-discipline collaboration. Our team of content strategists, experience strategists, researchers, transformational designers worked in shared documents and spreadsheets, doing real-time co-writing to put together all of the copy. You can see here places where we've left notes to each other, highlighted things, and cut down on copy. Once we felt like we'd nailed down the steps in the flow, we wrote when we'd come up with the final list of behavior attributes, we experiment with constellations or groupings of behavior. So here you see we started to brainstorm what are the different behavior attributes that we often saw in financial research. How would people approach their financial management, their personal financial management? So we wrote down a large group of behavior attributes and put them into groupings that we thought made sense. And then we experimented with constellations. Then we gave them cool names, like real constellations, so Orion, Perseus, Cassiopeia, etc. But when we first tested Impact early on, the names confused people, and though we loved the idea, we actually removed the constellation names and gave the groupings names that described what they contained instead of the cool constellation names. This is how the process looked much later. Fast forward 2 years later, when we created the patient impact kit and we had got our process down more formalized, this is what the same process looked like then. So when we created the kit, we also have a section of this kit and a step in which there are design tips that designers can use to design solutions for those particular kind of behaviors that are observed in people during research. So using these design tips, we ran this by our behavior change experts and looked at psychological theories and behavioral theories out there to be able to write these in a way that would affect behavior change when required. But most importantly, we tested impact throughout the creation process. Tested it early, tested it often, tested it with a wide variety of people, and we were sure to evolve it when we got feedback and critique. This is an example of how we tested basic paper prototypes, first internally, first within ourselves in our team, as well as with our colleagues. This helped us grow the kit as we went through cycles of iteration and build it up in fidelity. With each critique and session, we found that things such as confusing terminology that we needed to clarify, or more instructions that needed to be added in to make it clearer, etc. We also took it out in the world and took it to workshops where we had people give us feedback on the method. We used it with our clients, we used it at workshops, at conferences, and we also used it at teaching opportunities. All of this helped us evolve the kit and make it a lot better. So all of the cycles of testing and iteration, this is how the whole kit grew, the content grew. There was a lot of ups and downs, there was a lot of changing. There was also a lot of printing mishaps, but eventually we ended up at this version, which we think looks pretty nice. It's got a lot of positive reception and more people are starting to use it. We also created a light kit, which is an industry agnostic version. And people can download this for free and use it to create their very own impact kit for the industry that they're working in. There's a link here, and we'll be sending out the PDF later where you can download all of this.
So now we're going to share some tips to help you get started creating your own design methodology. So first, you want to assemble your A team, the best of the best. You're going to bring a range of knowledge, expertise, and viewpoints to the table. Because when you work with a diverse group of stakeholders, they feel more invested, valued, and heard, and they're more likely to be your allies in socializing your personas. But remember, no matter who you bring to the table, there's always going to be that one person who wants to crush your dreams. Don't let them derail you, and if you can, turn them into a believer. The best way to do that is to prove that you're meeting a real need. So make sure that your work will help your team or organization do better or be better. You want to keep track of everything, your successes, your failures, any insights, feedback. They can really be helpful as you continue to evolve your creation. Feedback and collaboration can only strengthen your work. As Priyama mentioned, we shared impact with as many MadPow teams as we could, and we got useful feedback and criticism every time. As you share your work, you'll recruit cheerleaders. These are the people who are willing to use your tool or process or methodology on their projects. Be open to how your solution might change over time. We didn't envision a PDF-based light kit when we first started, but it's been a great way to spread the framework. Now, when you work on a project over the course of several years, things change, people move on. But we say if team members want to move, start a family, get married, discourage it. Just kidding. We love big life events. And you really want to prepare yourself for the negative feedback. It can be hard to hear, but it may actually help you improve your creation. Just don't take it personally. When you're finished, spread the word as much as you can. This means giving talks, writing blog posts, and making sure that your creation gets its moment in the sun. The one thing that we've seen, and you may have too, is that great ideas aren't that uncommon, but actually moving from ideation to implementation is. Hopefully, the 10 tips we've shared today can help you turn your brilliant aha moments into usable, effective tools, processes, and methodologies. We hope that you will leave this webinar totally prepared to create your own things, but if you think that you want to learn a little bit more, you can check out these links here. You can look at the impact links Priyama shared earlier too. And now, if you have any questions, we are happy to take them. Thank you so much for coming to our webinar.
Thanks, Priyama and Dana. As they mentioned, we are going to be making the deck of this available. It's actually under the handout section of your GoToWebinar, so you should be able to download it right now. We will also be posting it on our website and emailing it out after this webinar with the recording of the webinar. So if you want to watch it again or make it easier to find all those links and our contact information, that will all be made much more accessible to you. So please let us know if you have any questions. Got something coming in. Anything, we're happy to answer. So let me see. Okay, here's one question. I'm curious, what were the new names of the constellations?
There are things like decision making, tolerance for complexity,
Relationship, management, execution.
were our people delegators? Are they independent?
Oh, she's
Yeah.
asking about he or she
Oh,
was asking about the constellation.
Oh, the constellations.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Sorry.
was management, guidance,
Execution,
execution.
relationship.
Oh, really? Priyama knows that.
So we group them according to how do people make decisions about their financial management. How do they execute upon it? What kind of relationship do they look for with their financial institution, etc. So that's how we ended up grouping them.
Like I said, it's all about letting it evolve. It's hard to let go of things when you're so attached to the constellation concept. But at the end of the day, the user gets to get something a little bit more clear for them. Any other questions that you guys might have? Okay. Let me pass it over to Priyama.
Right. So thank you so much for attending, everyone. But what I wanted to say really is that we utilize the sort of methods that we use with our clients on an everyday basis. So this is something that we do in the content strategy work and the experience strategy work, evolving ideas, empathizing with the actual users, and using it in our work to create really innovative solutions. So this is just an example of how we use our daily methods and tools in something that we really thought we could use to create make our own work better as designers, and we really honestly ended up empathizing with our own problems in creating personas and creating a solution for them. So if you are looking to develop and design your own design methodology, look close to home, look at problems that you are having and how you can solve for them, and that's a great place to start.
Thanks. Sorry, final slide. All right, so thank you guys so much for attending this webinar. I hope this 30 minutes gave you some insights and a quick little nibble on how to design your own methodologies. Just want to let us know that both MadPow and the Center for Health Experience Design, we're here to help you, and we can help you with your design and innovation goals. So services that we offer is we'll help you with your research and strategy, user experience design and development, service design, intervention design and evaluation, and design and innovation challenges. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me at khoutnin@madpow.net. Thank you so much for your time and attention, and we'll be following up with the recording and the slides shortly. So thank you so much.